afternoon, and thank you for joining us for this webinar that's based upon hospitality. It's our last one in our series of webinars. Now we're having a few issues regarding our sound. What a pleasure that is. Do bear with us. We are getting it sorted whilst we're having a chat. Hopefully you can still hear me, and that's fine. So today we're here to talk to Michael Steele from Kiwi Training, who is going to tell us a little bit more about hospitality, what can happen within a hospitality sector, what sort of job roles you can do, and also how an apprenticeship can fit into those. There is, as always, an opportunity to ask questions throughout. The Q&A tab's there for you. Please use it. There is no such thing as a stupid question, no such thing as a question that is too tricky for us. If it's a silly question, I've probably thought it or asked it anyway. So please feel free to ask any questions you want. And as always, if after this you'd like to know a little bit more information, or you'd actually like to speak to any one of us one-to-one, either myself, Michael, or a member of my team, more than happy to arrange that. So this time we're going to do a little bit of a different format. So it's more like a bit of a Q&A between myself and Michael, just so we can pull out the full details of what hospitality actually means. It is a huge sector within the Solent. You know, we are very much a coastal area, and the fact that we're a coastal area means that there are a lot of hospitality opportunities. So Michael, one of the first things I wanted to ask you, what does hospitality actually mean?
Well, good afternoon, Jodie, and I hope you appreciate me sporting this wonderful headset this afternoon. I think I'm looking the part, aren't I, on this webinar this afternoon?
For sure.
I mean, hospitality is a massive sector, as you said, in the Solent area, and of course it covers so many different elements. I mean, the question, what does it actually mean? Well, the definition of hospitality is the friendly reception and treatment of guests or strangers. So it's about that welcome, that smile, the quality of receiving and treating guests and strangers in a warm, friendly and generous way. And so again, if you think about the types of areas which will come on to that hospitality covers, let's just think of it as that greeting for now, in a variety of different areas.
Excellent. And so when we say the hospitality sector, what sort of job roles can that cover?
Well, I mean, it really is so varied. So let's just think about sectors such as, you know, hotels, or, you know, events, and we're talking about, you know, concerts or football matches, where hospitality is really quite prevalent. In Southampton, of course, we have the Southampton Boat Show every year, so there will be, you know, lots of hospitality events, and to look after the guests when they're arriving. We have, of course, in Southampton the Mela Festival, which we have in the summer months, and of course there's huge amounts of hospitality attached to that. But then, of course, we're looking at other, other sectors such as, you know, theme parks. You know, we have Poulton's Park just on the motorway. We've got Bewley Car Museum, which has hospitality against it. And then, of course, we have the massive cruise liner business here in the city, and of course the P&O ferries from Portsmouth, and of course there's hospitality all attached to those type of industries. And of course the bog standard industry that you think of when we look at hospitality and think of it is, you know, the restaurants and you know, the cafes where people would get their coffee fix, where I frequent many establishments across the south. But you know, the restaurant trade in our area is huge. You know, we have obviously the big West Quay complex with lots and lots of different restaurants, and we have many independent restaurants in places like Portsmouth, specifically Southsea down at Albert Road, lots of different themed types of restaurant, and so they all all come under a huge variety of hospitality sector.
So really, it can be anything from your hotel receptionist right the way through to being a fine dining chef.
Absolutely. And so, it's about that initial, greeting coming in, hospitality. It could be about, working in food and drink, for instance, or working, behind a bar, or working with, just general items such as paninis and things. It could be right through to, the commis chef side, working in restaurants and, preparing lots and lots of fine dining, different types of cuisines. There's lots of, different areas that that hospitality, covers, and it's such a rewarding sector. It is a sector that it requires, lots of dedication, lots of a keen eye, a very, very, sharp eye. It's about presentation, and it's about essentially creating or contributing to the whole feeling of, making someone feel very welcome, ensuring that they get, high levels of customer service, and ensuring that they get great food, of course, and drink along the way, meaning that, they look to come back to that establishment again in the future. And of course, qualifications and apprenticeships, work very, very closely in ensuring that people are trained and people are prepared, ready for those different sectors. Now, of course, lots of different hospitality sectors, are aimed in business at certain levels. So you might have, an independent cafe on your local high street that's serving the local community. You might have, a five-star restaurant that is their clientele is aimed at businesses or conferences or, dignitaries or whatever it might be. So standards in hospitality can be, really, really, really varied. During this lockdown phase, Jodie, I'm sure, like many people, have been watching different TV shows and things on platforms, streaming platforms such as Netflix, etc. And I've got brought into the whole Downton Abbey historical drama during lockdown, and it's been really fascinating to watch that type of show, because of course hospitality, when I was thinking about this webinar some time ago, looking at the different types of hospitality that the people in that program work with. So again, there's local pub food, there's people working in the kitchens, there's people moving the food up into the dining areas, there's the summer fetes that they did with lots and lots of different food outside, and barbecuing and all that type of stuff. It's really, really, really varied. Hospitality is not just one singular thing. It really is very, very, very diverse. And I think that, no matter what your skill or what qualifications you've had, or, what type of experience that you've had previously, if you're looking to get into the sector, it's so varied that there's always a position for somebody.
So with regards to the job roles that you can get in hospitality, it's really can be almost anything to do with and relating to, I guess, the tourist sector, the food and drink sector. You can get everything from a barista right the way through to a chef, and then onwards to, front of house staff. So it's a super diverse sector, isn't it?
It is, absolutely. And I think the great thing about hospitality, and certainly in my experience of working, with organizations and with individuals doing work-based learning in that sector, is the progression and the promotion opportunities that hospitality can bring. So, somebody starting off, possibly at, front of house service, or starting off as assistant chef or commis chef or whatever it might be. But, if you work very, very hard and, you've got a real dedication there, then the promotion opportunities, the career progression within hospitality can, lead you into so many different areas, which is really exciting.
And I guess the nice thing about an apprenticeship is it can really take you from that initial sort of first foot in the door, first step on the career ladder, right the way through to almost managing your own hotel, can't it?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I mean, the fantastic thing about, of course, the apprenticeship is it's preparing people, for possibly who weren't academic, and they want to gain experience in the workplace. It's about a full journey of an entry level apprenticeship at level 2, and then progressing through the levels up into different job roles, and as you've quite rightly said, running your own business. And although I haven't worked in hospitality before, I did that route myself through the apprenticeship route of starting on a low level apprenticeship and then progressing through the levels to one day then running a business. So again, yes, absolutely, that's a destination that people can get to within the apprenticeship sector. And of course, with real life experience and real life work experience, you're working with a lot of variety of different people. You're working with many people from different nationalities, different languages, which is fantastic because you get to learn about their cultures, the different foods that they can they produce and make in the background of where they're from. And so the sector can be really, really diverse. I mean, here in the UK, we have, in terms of food, our national diet now is so varied because we have so many access. Oh, we have so much access to lots of other cultures. I think the last time I checked, I think the favourite national dish was curry, which is again one of my favourites. And and actually it's fascinating to learn about how food and cuisine has evolved, certainly in the UK over the years, because certainly when I went to India 2 years ago, asking for some of our dishes in India, well, they don't exist, of course. They've evolved in the British psyche as our own dishes. So again, there's so much creativity in hospitality that can be nurtured, and people, a lot of creative people like to go into hospitality because they can express themselves and create new things, new ideas, try different things, and if customers like it, then of course they'll return. So I've worked with people over the years that have realized their dream in terms of running their own business or opening their own restaurant, or opening their own small guest house or stuff like that. So I've worked with a few people that have done that. And so again, it doesn't matter what level you enter at, what job you enter at. It's all about the skills and the experience that you can get while you're there on the apprenticeship, to then take forward and help you to decide and what you want to do in the future.
That's amazing. Now, tell me a little bit more about, I know certainly in the sector, they can be quite difficult to fill vacancies. There always seems like there's a lot of opportunities within the hospitality sector, and they are there and ripe for the taking, aren't they?
They are. And the hospitality sector in the UK has quite a high turnover. I think that people in the UK, view, or the way that hospitality has kind of evolved over the years here, in some respects, is that it's a very transient workforce. People move into it for a short period of time and then move out again. And it's a sector that is great for someone wanting to do that, to just pick some hours up and want to then move on back into another sector. But there again, like I said earlier, there's a lot of hospitality employers, certainly in this area that I've worked with, that there'll always be a place for university students or people passing through the place or wanting to get back into other industries. But I think a lot of employers very much want people to enter into the hospitality sector for the long term, because it's very expensive from an employer's point of view to continuously keep recruiting. It's a lot of time, it's a lot of money to do that. It's a lot of additional pressure on other staff members to train those new recruits coming in and interview them, and the processing of all their paperwork, etc. So there's a lot of work there. So if they can bring someone into the sector and keep them there for a number of years and train them, I love the expression, I use it quite a lot, developing tomorrow's leaders today. I have a view of, no matter what level you are in an organisation's, and hospitality, really relates to this. It's about training you to become a leader in whether it's leading people or leading a section or leading a department or leading an order. It's about leadership skills. And I think if many employers want certainly young people to come into the sector and stay there for a number of years so they can train them up, and the key is about succession planning, because things happen all of the time, and as you know, with the COVID situation, it's a new challenge we've not faced before. And so when you think about managers or directors or owners of the business, one day someone's going to have to take over those roles. One day those people are going to step down or retire or whatever it is, and new people are going to need to step into their shoes. And that's what apprenticeships are all about. It's about training tomorrow's leaders today. It's about ensuring that there's succession planning, that people are going to be trained and have the skills and the qualifications to be able to take over those higher arching roles within the businesses. So if you're somebody that wants to create a career and somebody wants to stay somewhere for a long period of time, I would say that hospitality is a fantastic sector to get into, because unlike some other countries, and I'll use the US as an example, hospitality is very different in the US. A lot of people there tend to enter hospitality and stay there for a number of years. Now, okay, there are arguments on both sides why that is. It might be because the US is more of a tipping nation than the UK, but it is a fact that their turnover of hospitality is a lot less than we have here. But I think it's all about mindset. If you enjoy wanting to provide a service to people, and you've got a passion for food and stuff that goes on within this sector, then I think hospitality is a sector that you really can have a fantastic career in, and be very happy and be very successful.
Lovely. So tell us a little bit more about the types or the actual apprenticeship standards you could do within the hospitality sector.
Yeah, I mean, they're really varied. I mean, it starts at the level 2. People can enter into the hospitality team member apprenticeship, and that's really looking at kind of carrying out a range of general and specific roles within hospitality business. So that would be including things like bars and cafes and conference centres, restaurants and hotels, stuff like that. And again, sometimes there's certain spin-offs to that. So you could look at, for instance, the maritime caterer apprenticeship, which is a level 2, and that's looking at working in the hospitality hotel services department on board ships and vessels. So there's an apprenticeship specifically for something like that. And then of course we've got the commis chef level 2 apprenticeship. So that's looking at preparing food and things like carrying out basic tasks of cooking in every section of a kitchen, under of course the supervision of a senior chef. It's important to put that out. At level 2, we're really looking for people to be trained by highly experienced people within the sector, in partnership with the training provider who is going to be delivering the apprenticeship. And so those are kind of some of the entry-level hospitality apprenticeships that are available. Well, something a little bit more senior, so the advanced apprenticeship at level 3, you then could progress from the level 2 up into the hospitality supervisor apprenticeship, as an example. So the level 3 hospitality supervisor apprenticeship is looking at the supervision of staff and activities within hospitality business, and that's including things like bars and cafes and conference centres, restaurants and hotels, stuff like that. And then of course we have the senior production chef. So that's another advanced level apprenticeship that is available, and that's looking at, again, of course, managing a team to produce standardized dishes and menus within a kitchen environment. So again, working as a 12-month apprenticeship, that particular one. And so that's, again, looking at those advanced elements of working in the kitchen as the senior production chef. And going higher from that, Jodie, I mean, we can look at, for instance, the level 4 apprenticeship, which is the hospitality manager apprenticeship. Now that's based on average, I would say, around over kind of 18 months duration. And you're looking at kind of working across a variety of organizations, focusing on ensuring excellent customer service experience. So, that's really a kind of management level apprenticeship that would support your development within that sector. And again, that could be done whether it's in a hotel or, conference facilities or, restaurant, anything like that. So you can see there the career progression, like we touched on earlier, from a level 2 apprenticeship right up to a level 4 apprenticeship, what's that's possible and available for people to enroll onto.
Amazing. And what are some of the employers that take on these hospitality apprentices?
Well, specifically employers, in our area. I mean, we mentioned a bit earlier about, of course, the cruise liners and stuff like that. So you've got, Carnival, of course, that would be looking to bring people on to work on the cruise ships, etc. We've got, of course, the chains locally, within the city. So you have national chains, so those restaurants, looking at things like, Prezzo or ZZ's, or looking at, the Wagamamas and the Real Greeks, those type of restaurant chains with lots of variety of different foods, ring bells with me. And then, of course, more localized, restaurants. So, you have your Indian restaurants or your Chinese restaurants or your Thai restaurants, lots of different cultures and themed restaurants there that are in our local area. And of course, if you're in the Solent area, you'll know your local restaurants, to you. And then, of course, we've got, our coffee shops, which always interest me because I'm a big coffee fan. So of course we have the coffee chains such as the Costa Coffees and the Starbucks and the Neros and the Coffee Ones, and the long list of lots of other coffee chains that are available. But of course, big employers locally, as we mentioned, so things like the football clubs, Southampton Football Club, Bournemouth Football Club, and Portsmouth Football Club, just name 3 on the south coast of England. Those football clubs do big match day events, and hospitality is a big part of that. And then of course we have lots of restaurants and summer seasoned places. So the New Forest, there's a lot of restaurants and pop-up events that happen, as I mentioned, fetes or festivals or stuff like that, where there are there are events that people can partake in. There's organisations like Wise Catering who particularly specialise in events. So you're actually employed by a catering company, and then they actually work with different events, like we mentioned at the beginning of this webinar, which is about things like the Southampton Boat Show or Mela Festivals and stuff like that, where lots of people can get involved in things. And of course, our local councils, even, Southampton City Council, Hampshire County Council, Portsmouth City Council, those councils, do events themselves, or there's concerts, or, it just covers, so many, wide variety of things. And so, they're employers, of course, within their own right. But again, it's the hotel sector, and I'm in Southampton today, so I'm just thinking of Southampton, where, we have the hotel chains that are regularly looking to take people on, whether it's, the Hilton chain or the Ibis chain, or we have the Grand Harbour Hotel here in Southampton that have restaurants here. So like we mentioned earlier, different levels of hospitality which people are interested in moving to. And I've met people over the years that actually have had a real successful career within hospitality and have actually challenged themselves to work in those different settings. So their CV is a real wide variety of different skills that they've gained. I remember seeing a CV from somebody that had things like coffee shop experience through to restaurant experience through to working in hospitality in one of the casinos in Southampton. So it's a real wide variety, but it could be household names, as we said. John Lewis and Marks and Spencer's both have restaurants in their shopping centres. So it could be hospitality on those household names, but of course it could be local brands or restaurants local to you. And of course, this might be your next question, Jodie, which I'm going to jump straight into. But of course, to find the apprenticeship in hospitality, where do you go? Well, the easiest place is to use your search engine and look for, find an apprenticeship or apply for an apprenticeship, and that'll take you to the .gov website. Where you can search for vacancies against your local postcode. It'll tell you where vacancies are specifically if you're looking for an apprenticeship. But my advice is if you do secure a job in the hospitality sector and you're going for interviews, a piece of advice from me would be to ask the person interviewing, do they offer an apprenticeship scheme? You're applying for a vacancy in hospitality, but does that come with doing an apprenticeship? Does it come with further training that you can develop your skills and you can learn new things on that job? So there are lots of hospitality employers that currently do not offer an apprenticeship scheme, and so I think everybody, no matter if you're in apprenticeships or not, I think everyone is an advocate for apprenticeships and couldn't be asking that question to people interviewing. Can they do an apprenticeship and can they be involved in apprenticeships, because there's so much value in enrolling on them and progressing through them.
Perfect, Michael. Thank you. I've now got some Q&As for you, if that's okay. First one
Sure.
is, what is the most popular hospitality apprenticeship?
I would say the most popular apprenticeship qualification is the entry level apprenticeship level 2, and in my experience it would be the one that was linked in with food and drink. So those positions where they're looking at the coffee shop sector or the the behind the bar, or just general serving customers food and drink, and those that type of pathway through apprenticeships. But of course, you speak to other, some of our local colleges, etc., who do massive amounts of work with employers locally, doing the commis chef apprenticeship, which is very, very popular, working in the hot kitchens, etc. So in my experience, I've worked with many learners that on apprenticeships that want to do the food and drink element. But I do know it's the other side of it, the entry level commis chef side, is very, very popular too.
Next question. Do I need to have any work experience prior to starting a hospitality apprentice?
It really depends on what level apprenticeship that you'd be looking to enter into. So if you're looking to enter into a level 2 apprenticeship, then no, you don't need to have any experience. I think a want to do well and to learn all new skills is really, really important, and that's what an apprenticeship is all about. It's about learning new skills on the job, learning from an appropriate person, a supervisor, an expert in the employer, and then working with the training provider who is delivering the apprenticeship, working with the trainer from that training provider who absolutely would have worked in hospitality themselves. So they would be giving you their experience and teaching you the skills within the apprenticeship that you'll need to be able to progress through, enter through the endpoint, the gateway, and then speak to the endpoint assessor to demonstrate that you've learnt the information, that you've put it into practice, and you've retained all of the knowledge. So so from the level 2 point of view, no, you don't need to have experience. It's great if you do have some, but the higher level apprenticeships, yes, most certainly you would need to have some sort of experience, and you would need to be entering into the role as well. So I don't think it would be possible to enter into a commis chef position, but then wanting to do, let's say, for instance, the level 4 management apprenticeship, because that job role that you're in is not suited to that particular qualification. You wouldn't be getting the experience or the exposure to elements within the job role that you would be able to learn and complete the apprenticeship. So it really depends on the level, but if you haven't got any experience and you just want to go straight into hospitality at that entry level, that's absolutely fine.
Perfect, thank you, Michael. Another question we've got: how has COVID affected the hospitality sector and the availability of apprenticeships in that sector?
Well, I mean, like many sectors, COVID has had a massive impact on sectors and on business in general. Hospitality has been hit particularly hard. I think everyone can see that hospitality is, as we might first think of it in terms of restaurants and things, have needed to close because of social distancing. But many and things like, for instance, we mentioned about the cruise liners and hotels. So those types of areas within hospitality have been impacted greatly. But some areas in hospitality during COVID-19 has been have been really, really popular, and actually some sectors in hospitality have grown. So if you think, a lot of people have started to use more apps like Deliveroo or Just Eat to get more food delivered to their home. So myself included for an occasional treat. So those type of sectors has really seen a boom, and local restaurants and takeaway restaurants and stuff like that, they've seen a real spike in business. So some sectors have taken a big bash, and some have flourished. But I think as we now start to see, hospitality start to open up slowly, so there are non-essential shops and cafes and things have started to reopen. I've seen a lot of coffee shops that are now starting to open. I mean, even on the M27 motorway, if you think of Roundham service station, there is two Costa Coffee drive-throughs there, and they've been absolutely run off their feet. I mean, at some stage they've had a queue that's nearly been a half an hour long. And we've seen some reports in the media and on social media and stuff of McDonald's restaurants of people's that have been sat in their car waiting 2 hours in some cases to get their first McDonald's after lockdown. So I think it's going to get busier again. It's going to start opening up in those types of areas, but it will be doing it slowly. But you can see that people want to try and return to some sort of memory of the old normal. We have the new normal now, and the old normal is what we remembered it to be. There is always going to be a place where people want to go out and they want to have the experience of having dinner, and they want to have an experience of going to an event or going to all those type of things. So they are going to there's still going to be a place there for the sector, and so as we start to open up more, there are going to be more opportunities for people to re-enter the hospitality sector.
Perfect. I think I've got one last question, and it's: what sort of qualities does an employer look for in apprentices in this sector?
Well, the qualities are somebody, again, it really depends on the job role. So if you're looking for somebody that's going to be working front of house and working with customers and is going to be dealing with the initial, food items, whether that's working, behind a bar in a coffee shop, barista bar, or working, that's dealing with, alcohol, such as in a restaurant and stuff, they're really looking for somebody that has really good eye contact, that can, articulate themselves well, and really can kind of put across to the employer that they're looking for career in hospitality and looking for someone to give them an opportunity, and they want to give that great service over to customers, because without customers returning in lots of elements of hospitality, then the business won't flourish. They need people to return, of course, and spend their money. So if it's that type of apprenticeship in terms of the kind of front of house side, that would be what I would be looking for, from an employer's point of view. Well, if you're looking for a commis chef position, then of course you don't. With lots of ways, you don't need that front of house element to you. If you've got a passion for food, you are dedicated. The hours in hospitality can be quite long. So if you are somebody that are able to work up until sometimes 10, 11 o'clock at night in that sector, and of course then closing the kitchen down, they'll be looking for someone that's got flexibility in terms of their time, and so those type of qualities, working in a kitchen, work well under pressure, not afraid to ask for help. I think that some people get a perception of what kitchen life is like when they watch some of the reality TV shows with some of the celebrity chefs, screaming and shouting and all the rest of it. It's not like that in lots of kitchens that I've visited, and apprenticeships that Kiwi Education's delivered in those type of settings. It's not like that at all. So as we said, Jodie, earlier when we were asking for questions and things, no question's a silly question. Many employers will want people to ask the question 5 times if necessary to ensure they don't get it wrong. So I think look at the role, look at the job role, think about what qualities you can bring to that specific position, and be yourself. And I think that if you're honest and true to yourself in the interview scenario, and you can really put across to the employer what you're good at, and things about what you want to learn, and your dedication to the sector. I think dedication and passion, really, when I interview people for positions, certainly, passion for doing something, for being in the sector. Why do you want to be in this sector? What is it about hospitality that's different, and attracts you into it? Why would you not want to go and, what's the difference between working in an office and coming into hospitality? And if you can really get that across in the interview, then I think that any employer would be proud to have you on their team, because those are the qualities that employers are looking for, and longevity as well. I mean, I had a candidate once say to me in an interview that if they were successful in the role, they only planned to be in it for 3 months, and then they were going to go on holiday for 6 months. In that particular time, we were looking for somebody that we wanted to come on, because if we're going to invest in training them and developing them, we would want them to be in the business for a minimum of a year. And of course, if you're applying for an apprenticeship in hospitality, do have a look on the government website, the Institute for Apprenticeships website. Check out how long the apprenticeship standard duration is, because that would be the expectation if it was me applying for the position, to see how long the contract with the employer would be for. If the apprenticeship is 18 months, but yet the position perhaps you're applying for is only a year, then of course I'd be asking that question in the interview, because it would be very challenging to try and get you through the apprenticeship in a shorter duration than what's recommended on the not impossible, but more of a challenge than what's recommended on the Institute of Apprenticeships website. So those are the types of things that I would be saying with employers. But any advice for someone going for an interview, I always say, is be yourself and smile lots.
Always good advice, Michael. So I think that concludes all of our questions for today. I just wanted to say a huge thank you to Michael from Kiwi Education for joining us today. It's been really insightful to learn all about the hospitality sector and the very many ways that you can get involved in the sector, and also what a lot of opportunity there is within the hospitality sector, which is excellent news. As I said at the beginning of the webinar, if you want some further support, help or guidance, then please do. This video is available on our YouTube channel with all the contact details there. You can contact the Solent Apprenticeship Hub or Kiwi Education, and either myself or Mike will be more than happy to help, even if it's just another question, a chat about your particular circumstances, both of which we can both offer. Thank you again, Michael, and that concludes the webinar for today. Thank you.